Hello, everyone. Welcome to this powerful English learning story. Today, we are going to talk about one of the deepest struggles in every human life: fear. Fear has stopped kings from fighting, leaders from speaking, dreamers from acting, and ordinary people from living. But in this story, you will discover how a single person learned to break free from fear and how you can do the same. Listen carefully, because this is not just a story. It is a lesson for your life. There was once a young man named Daniel. He lived in a small town, surrounded by mountains and endless silence. On the outside, Daniel looked like everyone else. He worked, he smiled, and he pretended to be strong. But inside, he was ruled by fear. Fear was his invisible chain. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of what people might say, fear of taking risks. Every time an opportunity came near, Daniel's heart raced. His mind whispered, "What if you fail? What if they laugh? What if you lose everything?" And so, Daniel stayed quiet. He avoided chances. He lived small. He stayed safe. But in the silence of the night, he always wondered, what could my life be if I was not afraid? One day, something happened that Daniel could not ignore. A traveling speaker came to town. He was an older man with silver hair and eyes full of fire. He stood in the square and told stories of courage, stories of people who faced impossible dangers and still acted with strength. Daniel stood in the crowd, listening. The speaker said, "Fear is not your enemy. Fear is your compass. Wherever fear points, that is where your growth begins." These words entered Daniel's heart like a spark. For the first time, he thought, maybe fear is not something to run away from. Maybe fear is the place I must go. That night, Daniel could not sleep. He remembered all the moments he had hidden because of fear. The time he wanted to speak up in school but stayed silent. The time he dreamed of starting his own small business but walked away. The time he wanted to tell someone he loved them but swallowed the words. Fear had stolen so many moments from his life, and Daniel realized something painful. Fear was not only keeping him safe, it was also keeping him empty. The next morning, Daniel made a decision. He promised himself, "I will no longer obey fear. I will face it." His first challenge came quickly. There was a contest in the town, a public speaking contest. The idea of standing on a stage in front of hundreds of people made Daniel's chest tighten. His hands shook just thinking about it. But deep inside, he knew this was his chance to break the chain. For days, he prepared. He wrote down his speech again and again. He practiced in front of the mirror. But every time he imagined the real stage, fear returned. His inner voice shouted, "You will forget your words. You will embarrass yourself. Everyone will laugh." Daniel almost gave up, but then he remembered the old man's words. "Fear is your compass." And so, trembling but determined, he chose to walk into the storm. The night of the contest arrived. The hall was full of people. Daniel's name was called. His legs felt heavy, but he walked to the stage. He could hear his heartbeat echoing in his ears. For a moment, he almost ran away. But then, he looked at the crowd and whispered to himself, "I am stronger than my fear." He began to speak. His voice was shaky at first, but then it grew stronger. He told the audience about his own struggle with fear. He spoke honestly, from the heart. And something amazing happened. The crowd listened. They were silent, deeply moved. When Daniel finished, the hall exploded with applause. He had faced his fear, and he had won. That night changed him. Not because he won the contest, but because he realized something greater. Fear was only a shadow. Once you step into it, the shadow disappears. But the story did not end there. Fear returned again and again in Daniel's life. Fear before his first business deal. Fear before asking someone he loved to share life with him. Fear before taking a risk to travel far from home. But every time fear appeared, Daniel remembered his first victory. And he chose to act, even with fear. Over the years, Daniel became known not as the boy who was afraid, but as the man who inspired others. He started helping young people in his town. He told them, "Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is action in the presence of fear." Let me tell you something powerful. Fear will never leave you completely. Even the greatest leaders, the strongest warriors, and the most successful people feel fear. The difference is, they act anyway. Think about Thomas Edison. He feared failure, but he still made thousands of experiments to invent the light bulb. Think about Rosa Parks. She was afraid on that bus, but she still chose to say no. Think about Nelson Mandela. He spent 27 years in prison, yet he still had the courage to forgive. Fear visits everyone. But fear does not control everyone. Daniel's story teaches us a secret. The more you face fear, the smaller it becomes. At first, fear looks like a giant. But when you walk toward it, the giant shrinks. When you take action, fear loses its power. This is the truth. Fear is only a feeling. It is not reality. Reality is built by your actions, not your emotions. Years later, Daniel stood once more in front of a crowd. But this time, he was not a contestant. He was the speaker. He looked at the young faces before him, full of doubt and hesitation. And he said, "Fear is the prison we create in our own minds. The key is already in your hands. The key is action." My friends, remember this lesson. Fear will whisper, "Stay safe, stay small, stay silent." But inside you, there is a voice that says, "Live, grow, and rise." Which voice will you choose to obey? Daniel broke free. You can too. Every time fear appears, take it as a sign. It means you are standing at the edge of growth. Step forward. Walk into the unknown. And you will discover that fear was never a wall. It was only a door. This was today's English learning story. How to break free from fear. Through Daniel's journey, you learned not only new words and expressions, but also a life-changing lesson. Remember these sentences. Speak them, feel them, and carry them into your life.